There. Hello, everyone. We should be starting in just a minute. We'll give one more minute for people to join. Welcome to the Making Money with Office 365 and leveraging its compliance aspects as well. All right. Welcome. My name is Bob Ballard. I'm the Principal Cloud Strategist with Planet Technologies. Going to start off with just a couple of quick notes about Planet. We're 6-time federal partner of the year, 5-time state and local partner of the year, numerous Windows partners of the year, and one of only 35 national solution provider partners for the entire United States at Microsoft. Over 150 consultants with over 150 consultants on a significant amount of varying expertise, etc. I'm not going to spend a ton of time. We've got a lot of content to cover on this, but I just want to make sure I included it with the deck. We've had over 2 million clients to the Microsoft Cloud. We specialize in codeless development on Azure, SharePoint, and CRM, as well as a number of other business analytics, on-demand service plans, etc. We get started, we just do a quick review of what you get with Office 365. We're going to talk a lot about some extensive new compliance features, security features, etc. Many people, if you're attending an Office 365 presentation at this point, there's been reasons why maybe you've delayed acquiring Office 365. Maybe it's you want to make sense of the money. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Maybe it's because you're not sure if you feel that, it's secure enough or what it can bring you. But I thought before we get going, I just wanted to start with a little bit of a quick overview to make sure everyone understands what's included in Office 365 and then get down to business on some of the other aspects. So Office 365 includes 4 major pillars, right? Pro Plus, the full-fledged Office on your desktop for business, for which we're using to watch this broadcast right now, SharePoint Online, as well as Exchange Online. So I'm going to drill down a little bit more on some Office Pro Plus things, but full-featured Exchange Online experience. Depending on your plan, which most government customers acquire, unlimited storage of Microsoft email, sorry, as well as, active mailbox, full retention policies, et cetera. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. SharePoint, access to documents online and offline, an amazing experience with OneDrive and 1 terabyte of personal storage. We talk a lot about how you share documents and secure them, the ability to meet all your compliance needs while getting access from your documents stored in SharePoint and OneDrive anywhere, anytime, any device. And then also, of course, Skype for Business. Again, you're watching a Skype broadcast right now. Online meeting, desktop sharing, instant message presence, integration with your GAL, the ability to federate with other government users. Anybody who's in Office 365 can federate. Super easy with anyone who is in Office 365, who else also has Link or Skype as its name now. Well, I'm going to drill down just a little bit on Office Pro Plus. So included in Office 365, there's a couple of main things to take away. The Office Pro Plus that's included in Office 365 plans So the ability to get 5 copies per device user. So 5 copies for each user on PCs and Macs, 5 copies on tablets, as well as 5 copies on phones, right? So if you need more than 15 devices per user, you probably need to seek professional medical help. I probably have a number you can contact to get more information about that. The you know that includes whether they're corporate owned devices or enterprise agency devices, as well as personal devices. Gain access from it anywhere, anytime. The ability to keep those copies of Office always up to date on the latest version, etc. And the ability to uh, get information, reporting, telemetry on how they're performing, what's going on, and manage this experience across all those devices. So one of the things that happen is once you have Office across 5 devices, which one did I open that version of Word in, or that document that I was looking at? Sure enough, I can find those documents and what I was most recently doing, and even the page that I was on across all of those devices. Um, Other really important thing once you move to the cloud innovation strategy is the ability to deliver significant functionality across the Office workload without having to wait for versions. I know there's Office 2013, and now what's included in Office 365 is Office 2016. The way there was numerous innovations that were released in the product across the life cycle. So instead of having that stair step of 30 new features, long wait, 30 more new features, the ability to release things like, great experience across multiple platforms like iOS and Android that mid-release, right? The ability, the upgrade from Sync to Skype for Business and all of the extra features that brought along. Things like Video Federation and Skype that came along sort of mid-product cycle. Outlook for iOS and Android, so bringing a much more rich email experience to non-Microsoft platforms for mobile devices, right? Um, the addition of groups in Office 365, a very powerful new feature. We won't really get into that today, but something you should look up as a follow-on, right? So Office for iPad, sending OneDrive for Business to be 1 terabyte of storage. All of these things came mid-cycle, and that will continue to open. Other products such as Delve and Sway being released mid-cycle as well. So an exciting capabilities to deliver these features away. So just a quick overview at this point. So Office 365 has been around a long time. If you want further information, feel free to reach out to us or your Microsoft team, talk about some of the details. I just want to sort of level set people and talk about just sort of zero in on trust and compliance in Office 365 to begin with. So I'm not going to sit there and read all these logos. For those that are looking, and I'm sure you're well aware, right? I want to I want to see, want you to see how many of your peers are using everything from NIST, who sets a lot of the government security standards. Some of the first customers in Grady Health and of Alexandria, all and up to states of California, many in the state of Florida. Insert numerous customers there. So when we're thinking about the built-in capabilities, right, security, compliance, and privacy, particularly in government customers, absolutely critical, right? So from the security standpoint, right, physical and data security with access control, encryption and rest, strong authentication, numerous things. I can go on for a 45-minute presentation on sort of the physical controls that are built into the data center, like RFIDing, memory chips and hard drives so that they can't leave the data center floor, destroying in place hard drives as they're removed, et cetera. Numerous best practices, ISO compliant things, right? Enabling customers to meet ISO 27001, IRS 1075, HIPAA, FedRAMP, CGIS. Insert your control there. I've got another slide. I'm going to talk about that. An absolute commitment through the contract, through execution, process, to meeting these compliance standards. So prior to being at Planet Technologies, I was at Microsoft for 14 years. I was one of the first cloud guys in the public sector at Microsoft, sort of leading the charge, feeding back from customers to those at Microsoft. Product group about we need to meet these standards. IRS 1075 is important. HIPAA is important. FedRAMP and FISMA were important, right? So how do we meet these? And then also admin center capabilities to help you. So Microsoft stays in compliance and doesn't do anything to meet these complex compliance standards from federal and state and local governments. But then also helping you meet the compliance, right? So things like DLP and legal hold and e-discovery, I'm going to talk a little bit more about all of those to help you maintain the things that you need to meet your compliance. And then clearly on privacy, hey, we all want to know, this isn't a consumer service that's been turned up to have extra capabilities, right? This is a full enterprise service. There's no mining of data for advertising. Microsoft's going to tell you the location of your data center. As well, you can ask for reports around, how they did in specific audits, et cetera, once you're a customer. Privacy controls that regulate, what can be communicated, what, all of those things, they're clearly outlined contractually in your terms and conditions, as well as your enterprise agreement and numerous other places. But this is just sort of a stack up of sort of the the pillars, right? PCI, FERPA for the education customers, HIPAA for customers, whether they actually are directly dealing with healthcare or have any sort of HR requirements, often have HIPAA controls as well. One of the newest ones to the party, IRS 1075. These have been made available along the way, and not only are made available, but are in constant negotiations or conversations from the security teams at Microsoft. How do they make sure that they stay ahead of any new controls, right? And as well. So as we so we look forward, okay, so Bob, we understand you guys meet, Microsoft and Office 365 helps me meet these compliance standards. What do I do when I start to go down my internal controls about what I feel like I need to do and how I can, in fact, secure these platforms, right? So there's a couple of core areas right out of the gate, like, Office 365 has done, significant work on in securing the compliance. So archiving, auditing, right? So the ability to integrate with the tools to help you, place archives. I can do unified discovery, not only just for email. And this is one of the things that, many people have some sort of compliance element in their email environment. But what if I went to a single place where I could search across email and link instant messages for business instant messages now? Sometimes it's a hard habit to break. And, SharePoint as well. So I can get a report, search across all of these with varying wildcards, including these dates and these people and these keywords, and deliver a report across all of that for both FOIA requests and e-discoveries, and then place those things on litigation hold as well, right? The ability to get, tenant wide auditing and reporting, right? So I can get logging across SharePoint and Exchange and OneDrive, and ability to get reports that say, which am I placing, where have I placed documents that might break PII guidance, personal information guidance, or where could I be in a HIPAA violation, and I can highlight that content. And we'll talk a little bit further about further things you can do along that way as well, right? Place that stuff when I do discoveries on hold, no matter what my retention policies are, keep it until I'm able to, move back even further from there. So DLP and Office 365, and sort of the mantra that I like to say is, it's not just for email anymore, right? So all of those things that many people have grown accustomed to being able to do in their email, which is highlight keywords, target them through templates for HIPAA or Aegis or PII or any custom made template that you might have. Um, put that through email. Also apply those to putting content out there in SharePoint document libraries, OneDrive for Business, get reports on them, block them, take action. We're going to talk a little bit more about all of that, right? Educate and empower your users while they work on sensitive content. So a perfect example in Outlook and Outlook Web Access to say the email you typed or the attachment you just made includes credit card numbers. Are you sure you meant to do that? Versus, waiting for it to be attached, sent, and kicking it back to them, right? Um, taking these policies, same thing, popping policies up. Do you realize that the content that you're putting up here doesn't meet our HIPAA standards, uh, our conduct for personal information standards? You sure you want to upload it? Do you want to seek approval? Do you need, is there a reason? Should I encrypt it? All of that information bubbling up that not only stopping them from doing it in the first place, but educating them along the way. So, having a centralized repository for what your data leakage protection policies are within Office 365, publishing that to the policy, and then pushing that policy across SharePoint, across OneDrive, across into Outlook as well, obviously, so that I can really take these policies and create them once and apply them across all of the workloads. Taking pushing up the contextual policy education by pushing up tips when people break them and say, hey, did you realize that you're taking you're violating a policy? Are you sure you want to upload it, like we talked about before? um, you know all that into singular reports so that I can aggregate and report on that. I can say, hey, tell me all the instances. So when you implement data leakage protection policies, you often start in audit mode. Let me see how often these policies are being broken today. Start to develop a plan in which I take action around them. So, we sort of work through the process of, I can take these messages, email as an example. I include a credit card number. There's a couple things I can do. I can simply say, are you sure you want to do this? And stop it there. I can alert, right? I can say, I want to classify this, report at it. I can say, these are the times when my end users have, in fact, sent, policy violations. I can say, hey, it's okay if you send it. I'm going to encrypt it. So I'm going to force encryption, whether that be internal or to external participants, and enact that. I'm going to enforce encryption by uploading this document into this OneDrive or SharePoint repository, right, based on these set of rules. I'm going to append the email message to do privacy notifications that it contains sensitive information. I'm going to block the message or redirect it to a secondary location for someone to review it. Hey, I'm going to say, you can only send that message by default. That policy is broken, but if you want to override it, I'm going to send it to management and they can say, yep, there is a good reason why we're sending this credit card information. Yes, we need to have it encrypted, but I'm going to allow it to be sent out. So the thing that's important, there are lots of solutions that do these for different varying technologies. One of the things that I think of when you go down the Office 365 perspective is that it goes across the platform from a single interface, right? The ability to take these policies, publish them to multiple technologies, and apply them across the board, taking similar actions, specific, right? I may want to do slightly different things, upload a document that includes personal information versus when I was going to send it to an external party, right? And able to take action accordingly. So the ability to have great track my documents, know where they are, encrypt them and read them in Office products regardless of the device they're on. So let's just say, here's the other sometimes. Let's just say, you use a third-party product for classification of these DLPs and encryption. What's the integration story when we start opening those documents in Excel in an iOS tablet or in an Android phone, right? So the Microsoft Office 365 platform, all of those benefits of being able to collaborate across multiple devices, across my network, et cetera, can be extended so it still does that classification of the information. It does applies, Azure rights management policies, encrypts it, allows me to open it on all of those platforms, still validating the protections that we decide are applicable with the Office 365 data leakage protection abilities. So let's talk a little bit about, so that's great, right? So Bob, you've sort of referenced a couple of times, right, how that we can have access from anywhere. That and on the top level, we all go, isn't that fantastic? My security folks, or I am a security guy. This terrifies me. So what's available to help protect ourselves with this? So I'm going to talk a little bit about what's available out of the blocks with Office 365. Conditional access, device management, as well as selective wipe capabilities. And then, just talk a little bit about there's things like Intune and Enterprise Mobility Suite that allow you to take this to yet a whole nother level. In our next webcast, Smarter Government webcast that we're going to be supplying, I think we're going to talk a lot more in depth around EMS. So conditional access. Well, here is something that's really, really changed drastically in the last 12 months around mobile device management experience. So 99%, 90%, I don't know exactly the number of these mobile device vendors leverage ActiveSync as the entry point to detect a device and in fact apply their policy to it, right? So it hijacks the ActiveSync, proxies it over to the real one, ingests, checks its policies down to the device. You're able to lock down and do what you want. And great, right? Because the reality is, up until very recently, the first thing everyone did when they wanted to connect to your environment was in fact connect via ActiveSync. Here's an interesting phenomenon that's starting to happen. So we get Office on the ability to install it, deploy it, et cetera, across all kinds of devices, 5 per each, as I said before. That includes 5 tablets and 5 phones. So most anybody who's requesting access to enterprise information from their phone, right, is going to connect to email first. It's well documented. But what if I already have email on my phone? I have email on my laptop. I just recall, oh, that's right. I was going to edit that document for the presentation tomorrow. Sitting out on my front porch, it's a nice evening. I have my iPad in front of me. I was watching Netflix or streaming ESPN, watching the game, whatever I'm doing. And I go, oh, that's right. Access to that. Quickly, I run out to the App Store. I install OneDrive because, I'm a good, smart and that's where I'm keeping my documents, so I know I have access to them outside the network. Install OneDrive, I log in, open up the document. Well, in most other solutions outside of what's built into Office 365 and what's available with Intune, there was no way to capture this user and apply mobile device policies to them, right? So now, in this world, I, in fact, connect through OneDrive. Even by connecting in that manner, Office 365 senses the device, applies the policy. It says, hey, to access OneDrive, you need to enroll the device. Hey, it's successfully enabled. And then you can say, example, many of us often, you can do application-specific controls, right? So, so you can say, the only thing they're going to put on their device is OneDrive. And through settings and management, I'm not going to allow them to store the OneDrive files locally. They have to stay up in OneDrive. Setting you can make in Office 365. But I do want to make sure that they have to provide some sort of login information or a PIN every time they log in. So you can actually say, hey, you can use OneDrive. I'm going to require you to put in a 6-digit PIN even if I'm not going to require you to put a pin on your device because you're not syncing mail. You have no data on it, so there's no reason to require you to lock your device all the time. But I do want to make sure that you use that or some other form of multi-factor authentication that's supported through the platform, so that every time that you connect to OneDrive through the app, you're required to provide some additional information, and leaving your iPad laying around on the table doesn't allow somebody to come up and take a look. From a device management standpoint, built into the product, require a password, prevent them from being simple, make them be alphanumeric, right? Once upon a time when a lot of people were still syncing and, we're still syncing, we were okay, and they had, devices that were more keyboard or, more phone pad centric, et cetera. It was all about syncing and using a numeric password. Well, what if we want to force it to be an alphanumeric password? We can set its length. We can encryption on the devices. If your device can't handle encryption, you can't join. Require them to have a pin lock. Experience is built into the Office 365 portal, so I don't need to go to some other product. And there's numerous things we can do through the actual admin center, but we can also apply policies and do these settings through PowerShell, as you can do through many other features of Office 365, right? I can configure these policies by groups, right? So I can say, hey, if you're in this group, this is your this is your policy. If you're in that group, this is your policy. So example, you might require just a standard PIN for everyone unless you're in the sensitive data group. And those are people that maybe handle more sensitive data, and those people we require alphanumeric passwords, for instance. Just an example of one of the things you can do. And then you can get reporting on, who's connecting, what devices they're connecting. I can do things like quarantine devices, requiring them to be specific makes and models if I want, all kinds of things. This, again, directly through the standard capabilities of Office 365. I can also do selective wipe, right? So one of the big deals originally was, I remember when the ability to remotely wipe devices came to Exchange years ago. And, through those, so somebody misplaced their phone, they were going to call IT, and they were going to, wipe the device so the sensitive information couldn't be found, or, the device couldn't be hacked, et cetera. End users were often really, really reluctant to make that call, because then they were going to lose all their pictures, everything that personal, as these two devices, as people's personal and work life on a device tend to intermingle, right? So with the ability to selective wipe, you can just wipe data and active sync data and those applications in Office 365 where they come into play. So that's fantastic, right? There's a lot of capabilities. By the way, I could do a presentation for an hour and a half on just those features and functions. I didn't include a slide, but I did want to take a second to say, that's a great start with device management. A shout out to possibly our next Smarter Government session around DMS, I believe. If it's not the next one, it's the one after that, where we can talk about extensive, much more comprehensive mobile device management, things like device containerization, right? The ability to prevent people from cut and pasting across applications, et cetera. Ability to prevent people with jailbroken devices, and et cetera, from connecting to your infrastructure. So that's sort of an add-on to Office 365. Many customers have already acquired implementing that today. Planet is one of the largest implementers of in the government space for Microsoft. So taking it even one step further. So I promised when I had this conversation, right, that I was going to talk about how you can be compliant. I was going to talk a little bit about what Office 365 was, and I was going to talk a little bit about the money. So this is a slide that I started including in presentations just to make people sort of get a perspective, right? I forgot to take out the state of Virginia logo I had on here for a particular agency. But if you're a 2,000 seat organization, by the way, these numbers, hold true and are eye-popping regardless of the size, even small ones. The ability to have unlimited storage for archive mail and up to a petabyte of storage for active email. That's 50 gigs per user times 2,000 in the example here, right? 20 petabytes of personal storage. You get 1 terabyte per user drive in Office 365. When we show, I'm going to show you a little preview or hint of the an ROI spreadsheet that I often use when I talk with customers about analyzing how much cost avoidance they can have. But it's scientists to figure out, okay, so industry average $5,000 per per gig of storage in an enterprise storage system. That includes maintenance, the fact that, you need multiple, 1 gig of storage really means 3 gigs of storage and all those kinds of things, right? So about $5,000 a gig. So you can do the math at the potential cost avoidance of, 20,000 times that, right? I recognize not everyone is actually going to use the 20 petabytes. I don't know of any customers that have told me 2,000 users, I had 20 petabytes of Office document. But please, whatever you do have, can have a new home of an Office 365 and be client, have data leakage policies applied to it, searched and shared on a whim, rules and policies to protect that doesn't go where it's not supposed to. Full in storage, multiple data centers, all of the things that you require, 3 copies of your data. So this is a little bit of an eye chart, but I wanted to actually take an example. We used 2,000 users in the example on the slide before. I wanted to take a quick example of, your mileage will always vary on this spreadsheet, and I don't want you to necessarily, and awesome that I'd actually cut off the little bit at the bottom, or no, it's there. I just had it covered. So, example of what we walk through customers. I've hidden a bunch of the categories because it's a little longer than this and it wouldn't fit on a slide. But how we help customers understand what you're replacing, storage costs, software costs, which I hid in this because there's a whole long section. It wouldn't fit antivirus and anti-spam and archiving and the ability data DLP software and a whole other host of additional capabilities. But in this example that we used of 2,000 users, right, the annual average cost avoidance was $520,000, right? The software cost was significantly less than that, and most of that software cost was already being experienced by the customer because they were an EA customer anyway. So the key here, if you're interested, and it can help you with these, as well as Microsoft sometimes as well. But we're certainly to help you understand the cost avoidance scenarios. Mobile device management is a huge new one as greater and greater capabilities have been built into Office 365. By the way, not to mention the less measurable savings that it's harder to show in a spreadsheet, right? How much time does it take you to do for your request now across all of these platforms, et cetera, right? They're a little more soft dollar costs, but they're tremendous saving, which really does at the end of the day equal costs. But like I said, it's a random example of a real customer that I did this for with their real numbers on what their costs were, had an annual cost avoidance of about $520,000 averaged over 6 years. So one other thing that comes up, potential blocker with Office 365 was hey, you talk like this was exciting and a good idea to have have this always up-to-date evergreen Office scenario, but my end users, they just can't keep up. So Planet Technologies actually just launched as of yesterday new comprehensive Office 365 support model called Evolve 365. On-demand self-help and training videos, searchable portal, coming soon some plugins for SharePoint and Office as well. As well as, so for your end users, they can type in very, very specific content, like how do I do a pivot table? how do I do mail merge? Gosh, I was on 2007. I knew how to do it. And, how do I animate, or, how do I add this or do that? Very specific questions, 1 3 minute videos with the specific tasks in action, library of thousands and thousands of those. And the ability in the premium service to even have phone support by trained and certified office specialists 24/7, 365 days a year, to say, hey, I need help in understanding how I set this up to make my pivot table work. Can you help me? Right. And then also, not only do the end users need to know this, but how does your staff, your help desk, your engineers keep track with what's coming, what's being launched every quarter, with the new features that are being rolled out, and does it impact your enterprise environment, and how do I prepare for it, et cetera. So Planet is actually a service to sort of help your end users stay up to date along with all these changes, offering them up, potential live phone support, and then all the back end folks as well, making sure they're contained to be trained and up to date in person. The ability to even bring in, Microsoft experience, the customer experience from Microsoft, a couple of times a year, to say, hey, there's a lot of changes that have happened into your Office 365 environment. Let's bring in the CIE and have our customers run through what those new things are. They've deployed Delve and Power BI and those things into your tenant, and how do my end users use it? Let's run them through. Let's do some train the trainers with my end users, all included in this service, available. If you're interested, you can go to o365support.com and fill out a form there, and we can get you a lot of further details on that. So with that, I think we're at quarter of, which is, I know we scheduled for an hour, but I was trying to target 45 minutes. We're just a minute or two early. Are there any questions from the group out there? Alrighty. Well, thank you and have a great day. Thank you. If you guys have any questions, by the way, it seems like there's no IM window. I'm not sure why that's happening. But if you guys have any follow-up questions, feel free to email me, rballard, RBALLARD, at goplanet.com with any further follow-up questions. If you further about sort of my ROI methodology, to determine whether you can save money using Office 365, or you can email Kay Wallman, KWAHLMANN, at goplanet.com as well. She is the sales rep for the Southeast Territory. Schedule further conversations around the technologies. Thank you. Have a great day.